So it is officially the Christmas holiday shopping season, and that means that parents are going to be nagged incessantly by their children for the gifts that they want for Christmas. And what I wanted to focus on in this video is that more and more and younger children are choosing to ask for a smart device of some kind, a tablet or a smartphone, and in particular iPhones and iPads, because all the other kids in school have them. Now, a lot of parents don't want to give in to their kids on these products because they feel that a smartphone is too adult and too mature and powerful a device to give to a child. And I've seen articles written on this, I've seen television documentaries about this, and I know of anecdotal evidence as well where kids very young, some of them younger than teenage years, who own smartphones. And it's very common in schools all over the world. I'm of the view that there really should be an age restriction placed on the ownership of smartphones. And there's a couple of reasons for this, and the first one is for health concerns. The connection between, brain tumors and cancer and smartphones, the jury is still out. Some people would say that the jury is not out. I remember speaking to a doctor about this particular issue. He was telling me about a colleague of his who was a brain surgeon who dealt with a lot of brain tumors, and he said that over the last 15-20 years he's seen a 300% increase in brain tumors. And he put it down, although I don't think he had any empirical evidence, but he said it was too much of a coincidence that in the rise of the smartphone that we also see this rise in the number of brain tumors. Now, people can talk about conspiracies, and they can also talk about how most of the studies into brain tumors from smartphone use are usually conducted by the smartphone manufacturers and mobile phone industry. So it's really hard to say if they're being entirely truthful. Obviously they have their own interests, but what I'm trying to say here is it does seem that mobile phones are more dangerous to children than they are to adults, because their brains, the way their cells and their bodies are developing, the way they're growing, that it could possibly, at least the theory is, could stunt them in some way or damage their cells in some way, far more so than what it would do to an adult. At least that's what we understand of it. But the other worry, so that's the first one, is the health issue. The other worry, of course, is the fact that children aren't nearly as sensible as adults, and they'll invariably make the wrong decisions when it comes to their usage habits of these devices. First and foremost, we need to obviously have parental controls placed on whatever device they're using, whether it's a smartphone or a tablet. But more than that, you're seeing it everywhere. Children who are hooked on these devices. And I know of one particular child in the family who is just constantly on their tablet device, and something that can cause almost a self-imprisonment, social isolation. In some ways, these devices become a kind of security blanket for children. I have older siblings who have children, and I know that I can see from the outside the struggles that they go through. And I have friends who have children, and you always want to take corrective steps for behavior that you believe or perceive to be damaging. Children would eat the wrong foods and play video games all day if they didn't have an older parental figure there to step in and make better decisions for them. It's a parent's job to worry about the welfare of their child, and it's a grave concern that children could become addicted to these devices, and that they get some sort of emotional need that is met through these devices that they're not getting through social interaction, that they're not getting through the love of a parent, that they're not getting through the love of friends and other familiar relations as well. Now, a security blanket by itself is, some children will have them. They'll have that rag that they bring around with them, or the teddy bear, whatever it is, and eventually the bond is broken when they reach a certain age and it's forgotten. Now, when it comes to smartphones and tablets, that may not be the case, because the worry here is that the security blanket doesn't go away. It just, in fact, becomes more important in the person's life, because children will effectively be kind of growing up too quickly. If they're hooked on their smartphone or tablet, and again, they're using it in a very different way to how you and I used devices as children. We didn't use any devices really as children. If you grew up around the same time that I did, or even in the 90s, stands to reason that the internet really wasn't a big deal in your life at all. In fact, I remember the first time I used the internet, I think it was 1995. Now, children back then played in a very different way. Friends would knock on my door, I would knock on their door, we'd ask if we're coming out to play, and we'd kick a ball around the field. Well, now children are on social media. Children are on Facebook. Children are on Twitter. They're on these social networks and they're communicating. And this is actually becomes one of their primary ways of communicating. And so people talk about the art of the face-to-face conversation, the art of communication. I hate that. It's not an art, okay? It's an essential product of human evolution, an essential part of our human condition and our being to be able to communicate together. And it shouldn't be a difficult thing for people to do. And we are potentially making it very difficult by preventing these children from being able to intuitively communicate and look each other in the eye and not communicate through a screen. And like I say, with the security blanket metaphor, the smartphone or tablet stays with them because as they get older, it doesn't go away. Adults have smartphones and tablets, and if you're a child that has one, well, you're just children don't stay children forever. They become adults, and so the security blanket stays with them. So they stay potentially in a state of arrested development. I don't believe that children should be able to have these smartphones and tablets at a young age. I mean, I think when they get into their teenage years, yes, okay. Beyond the 14, 15 mark. And even then, some families will have different rules about these things, of course, and I would totally respect their beliefs on that. But it's the families that are giving these devices to children who are, 4, 5, 6 and up, 9, 10, 11, 12. I mean, that is insane. Absolutely outrageous in my opinion. I really don't, yes, you can get child tablets that are pretty simple, that are probably, only a few steps above a simple handheld game console. And it's true that there were children in my school that had Game Boys and some of us that didn't and whatever. And they never really did us any harm. But a tablet or a smartphone, they're a significantly more capable device with a lot more utilities and features than a Game Boy. And they have a much greater and significant impact on someone's life and how they live their daily life and how they integrate into a person's routine. Where the issue really occurs is when a parent, I'm sure there's lots of them out there, and many of you who are parents on my channel, you put the foot down and you say, absolutely no way, you're not getting an iPhone for Christmas. And the child kicks up a ruckus and says, well, my friend in school has one, and that's the thing. And this is the problem, because parents, in much the same way that people in a capitalist society will compete against each other and keep up with the Joneses and say, my neighbor has that nice new car, look over my neighbor's fence and say, oh, he's got this, he's got that, and I want what they have. There's a little bit of that with how some parents treat their children versus how other parents treat their children. And some children are spoiled, and some, you're going to get this in a capitalist consumer society. Consumerism is not humanity's natural nature. And this is what we've been led to believe. We need to think in consumerist and capitalist ways all the time. And when you go against that, then, you're labeled a hippie or a weirdo or whatever. When in fact, you're just simply trying to go against the corporate machine that's trying to fool us all into believing that we get fulfillment through material items. And it's hard to explain that to a child at Christmas and without appearing to be stingy. And I understand that. I understand that, I remember what it was like to get presents from Santa Claus when I used to believe in Santa Claus as a child. And I remember the buzz and I remember all of that, and it was a wonderful thing to have, and I wouldn't try and take that away from anybody, although I do often think how deceptive and disingenuous it is to make a child believe, basically take advantage of their naivety and their gullibility and the fact that they'll believe anything you tell them and make them believe in a supernatural being that can give presents to billions of children all over the world. I do often question whether we should be doing that, or would we just get away with a metaphor and just tell them, look, it's your parents buying it, whatever. And I don't really think it would make much difference to children, really. But okay, I'm not going to get into that debate. Maybe that's an argument for another place. But my issue really is the fact that parents are under pressure from other parents. So there's almost this competition. It's like, well, you want to be able to put your foot down, but it's hard for a child to take you fully seriously because their friend has it. And so it creates a jealousy, and then the parents feel obliged to do it. I don't go along with that line of parenting. I think if you really want to put your foot down, you should. I think the child would benefit more from you being strident on this issue and taking a hard stance on it. I think it's unfortunate that parents are in this situation. I feel sorry for them. I also feel sorry for the enormous amount of money they're expected to part with. I mean, I know of parents who are spending hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of euros on their children, and you're thinking, this is insane. I mean, I think as a child, when I was growing up, in anywhere from 1 to 10, the kinds of presents that I was getting, if they were worth 50 euros, that was at the upper end of the scale. Okay, we didn't have any kind of money for that, but the outrageous sums of money, I mean, it was a very different time, but at the outrageous sums of money that parents are expected to part with for presents at Christmas nowadays with these smart devices is truly, truly worrying. So guys, I'm interested in your opinion on this from a range of issues. Obviously, there's the health issue for a child's safety, also how it affects the child, the parent, and also, you know, Christmas can be, because it's been hijacked by the corporate consumerist world, it's a great way of making, you know, children into dutiful consumers in later life to serve their corporate masters. And that's a debate maybe for another issue. But I'm asking you seriously, do you think that children should be allowed have smartphones and tablets? I do see the merit in a school environment for them to own a tablet, but that is a specific proprietary function. But using that tablet for personalization and communication and socializing and entertainment and everything else, and being able to use all of its functions unrestricted, and surf the web and app stores and everything. I mean, I don't think the parental controls on these devices do near enough. I think a child should have a normal, healthy, fun childhood, and I don't think that playing around with a smartphone or indeed a tablet for long periods of time is conducive to having a healthy and well-adjusted childhood that won't damage them in later life when they become an adult. So guys, let me know your thoughts on this issue, and as always, if you enjoyed it, please hit that like button, hit the red subscribe button to subscribe to the channel, of course, and you can check me out on social media if you're so inclined. Not a requirement, of course. And of course, check out my previous video, which is over there on the left hand side, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.